it, what emotional intimacy is or what it looks like? Okay.
Trust, safety, communication.
Okay.
So it's like a way of expressing shared expressed feelings.
Right. It's not the same as a physical intimacy. It's that vulnerability. It's that closeness, that feeling secure and in a safe place. We are finishing our key components in a marriage on emotional and physical intimacy. A lot of people like to say, "Oh, this person gets me and I could be myself with them." You feel you have that sense of vulnerability, and being open to express yourself. If we don't have a lot of those other key components, we won't get to the physical. Okay.
So the emotional part when it comes to courting, it's really understanding and learning a person's behaviors, their attitudes, how they react to certain things, how they respond to certain things, and importantly, like how they were raised, you know? So you're looking at all of those type of attributes when you're courting to build that emotional connection with them. And
Right.
if they, can understand you, so they'll learn your moods, you'll learn their moods, you know, and things like that. So
One way that you can build your emotional intimacy but it's to work on or get counseling for your past traumas or any trust issues that you might have that stems from betrayal or past relationships or past situations, is to work on that trauma and those trust issues. From that will definitely benefit you in trying to connect emotionally moving forward. We cannot do that if we still have this door open full of all of this pain and suffering and trauma. You have to release that to be able to move forward and break down those walls that we have built up for so long, or no matter how long it was. You have to be able to break that down.
Main things that could keep people, like you said, would have those be unable to like break down the barriers is that once something has almost like activated some response and it makes one of us feel uncomfortable for whatever the reason is, we feel vulnerable, therefore uncomfortable, because it's not always maybe I don't trust you or I can't communicate with you. We may see that the person that we're with is a great communicator, but then we also might see that that person doesn't do well in the space that I might be vulnerable in. And so it's almost like you're taking a risk on even opening up
Mhm.
because, sometimes we just see each other differently. So we may already know where the person may be able to help you through it, or if you need to see, like you said, um seek therapy or seek almost like professional or your own help before you're married. But sometimes things get opened up or reinitiated or re addressed in a relationship, and now you got to deal with it with the person you're with. So sometimes you're dealing with trauma in real time without really having all the right tools to kind of like help
Yeah.
your responses. So the vulnerability sometimes becomes the barrier blocking the actual issues. So it's like we both have an issue with being vulnerable and feeling okay because vulnerability is always seen as like an attack from someplace.
Mm,
We have to be able to like discern if that is an attack or if this
yes.
is just like you said, we just have to break it down, redefine it. We have to really figure it out and be comfortable in that 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 low state, I guess you could call it.
Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 through 7. Be careful for nothing, But in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto the Most High. And the peace of the Most High, which surpasses all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Yahweh Shai HaMashiach.
Yeah. Shall keep your hearts and minds. That just popped out to me when we were talking about just the traumas that we could go through that may be hindering and furthering and growing a relationship that we're trying to do now.
You know what's interesting in verse 6 is about be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication. So the whole point of it, like from a woman's perspective, it's easy for us to kind of see that as you all, like we have to be careful about fretting or over worrying about every little detail or every aspect of our life, right? But we could also look at it because there are men who could be mental thinkers and analytical thinkers and logical thinkers as well, and could be that type of communicator that doesn't speak much. So now, if a lot of men that we're around or the men that you're with isn't a talker, meaning like they just don't talk to be talking, even if it's an interesting thing, they'll hold their peace a little bit more than maybe the next person socially. They may be so in their head thinking about, well, what if she says this and what if she says that, and I don't want to do this and I don't want to do that, and in my past life. And so they spent this whole time having a whole conversation in their head, and then they finally say something, and now you as the wife could be like, what are you talking about? Because for them it could be like, I just said
Yeah.
something to help hopefully diffuse every aspect of something triggered her. I want to try to diffuse it. I want to help her, but if I say anything, I don't want her to fight me. So their answer now is like, man, don't worry about that. Just move on.
Yeah.
That could be their way of like helping you. And they're really thinking that because they're saying something in the moment that it always has to be because I'm so anxious and fretting or just upset about something, that the minute he says something, I'm going to naturally assume he's going to be the enemy and I'm going to like just load on him. So the whole don't worry for it or careful for nothing could also apply to a man when he's even trying to communicate to his wife, probably for something new or something that she still needs to work on getting better at, you know what I mean, or improving on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's why it's a good thing to make sure that we have open communication and that we can be able to talk and have that dialogue back and forth to understand, as someone said it earlier, understand where each other is coming from and each other's past.
1 Peter 3:7.
Okay.
Likewise, ye husbands, dwell with them according to knowledge, giving honor unto the wife, as unto the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers be not hindered.
What that's saying is that we want to make sure, and with our husbands, that they're wanting to discover us, okay, and we're wanting to discover them, okay. Seek out those vulnerable places so they could feel safe, right? You want to understand their perspectives, their emotions, okay. It's hard to build with someone you do not trust and have an emotional connection or vulnerability with. So these is key foundations. We brought up that word before, inspect or spect. I think we were talking about one of our key
Respect,
components.
kind.
With respect, but that word, like you said, Kaya, when you were dissecting those words, that spect, be that spectacle, like dive in, dig deeper, you know, get them to open up, get me. That's come on, okay, we know.
Colossians chapter 3, verse 19. Husbands, love your wives and be not bitter against them.
Again, affectionate, okay? Being empathetic, right? Not being selfless. And so we're reading the precepts that's talking about the husbands with the wives, but again, we can apply this because we have to do the same thing for them.
You could use that as a way of supporting to say, see, husbands, you are supposed to have, there is a duty in how your treatment and your management or how you handle your wife, because the Mark 9 one was talking, or the Mark reference that I'm going to find was talking about them asking Yahushua, can you divorce your wife, for just anything? And he was saying how like Moses said that because y'all were hard-hearted in that time. So he basically said to just divorce them all. So being bitter against your wife, even if she's the wife of in the truth and not just like a non-Israelite, is kind of the same thing, because you could still be making the mistake of having past trauma, or rushing into marrying somebody who potentially isn't meant for you, but now you have to make it work.
Right.
Maybe you were rushing, or maybe you had your intentions weren't the right intentions. They weren't how y'all were
Right.
supposed to come together.
Yep. And so basically, yeah, from the beginning he created male and female, and the man shall leave his mother and father, cleave to his wife, they shall become one flesh, no more twain. Um, whosoever put away his wife and marry another committed adultery. If a woman shall put away her husband and be married to another, she committed adultery.
Yeah, verse 5 said, for the hardness of your heart, he wrote you this precept. Verse 6, but from the beginning, God made them male and female. Yeah, that was just kind of like almost like
Yes.
a baseline, you know what I mean? As far as the bitter, like she just mentioned it, unforgiveness. And I like how you try even mention how that's wrapped up in there, because bitter sometimes can almost not look like unforgiveness, because bitter can also be in other subcategories, like we mentioned, like she just read in Ephesians about like clamor, evil speaking, and murmuring and things like that. It may not look like unforgiveness because you're initially saying something about it, or you feel a way then, but it still can lead to and be the start of unforgiveness if it's something that you continue to still have that same level of animosity about.
Okay.
Like if you're no longer calm about it, you're going to still sound that way. We
Yep.
got to work on that too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've been there, done that. Um,
Right, right.
I was calling it, what is it, emotional diarrhea is what I
Ooh,
was
yeah.
calling. You know,
We don't
but
want that.
This I've been there even courting, so it's not like it's just a marriage thing.
For
Because I
sure.
have written here silent treatments, being in separate spaces, holding grudges, the things that I've experienced during the courting process when my emotions can't be controlled is I would just ignore and be
Oh, and that
silent.
is a level of unforgiveness right there that
Mhm.
we,
And
it's
what
because
can
of the
you,
intent.
yeah, you can't resolve anything if you've shut down and
Mhm.
stop communicating. So I've had to pray and work through that, you know, have been successful. But I was just saying it's not just a marriage thing, even
Oh,
when someone's courting, you
yeah,
can still have these emotions because it's that intimacy that you're building as a
exactly.
couple. It's
yeah.
just that connection that your soul has with this person and the emotions that we have in general that are going to overtake us. But it's just how can we get over those things? How can we grow from them? How can, we communicate them? And it just takes me back to the whole counsel. The counsel within yourself, the counsel with God, the counsel with others is very important to help you identify that and then move past it. So it's very helpful.
Right.
It is actually very helpful that you also bring that up too, because it's also about, even when you're saying overcome, the person has to recognize it too. And they have to acknowledge it, because we could immediately want to do it because we are trying to gather ourselves before we just like sin by saying something and trying to do tit for tat. But it also can be used as a manipulation tactic from both of us. And If
Mhm.
we know that there's something in a place we're not supposed to go, we have to really force ourselves, being kind or being like gentle with ourselves a little bit, but we have to be real tough with ourselves of just like, no, don't go there and then come back around. Because if you don't come back around and you're in your head fretting and thinking, already having a conversation hasn't happened because you assume it's going to go bad if you bring it up again or you try to like talk it
Yeah.
through, you're still going to be in this forever cycle of like nothing's going to come out of it. So even if you get counsel, the advice is still going to be there, the wisdom is still going to be there. You still have to work on constantly, putting that in check and getting better at getting through those things.
Because emotional intimacy will definitely affect physical intimacy, and I know we'll get there shortly. Um, but I did have that same scripture, Colossians 3:19, and right, says the last two scriptures that were read focused on, of course, the husband. But then I wanted to read Ephesians 4:31 and 32, because when we talk about bitterness, we're talking about unforgiveness,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
which is a sin. Okay. And the only reason I'm mentioning that is because when it comes to emotional intimacy, which can block, right? If we're not having that connection, if we don't feel affectionate, we don't have security, or we don't feel like we're understood, it's going to make us shut down.
Right.
And that's the one thing we want to avoid doing in a marriage or a courtship, because then we can't allow for any growth or improvement within ourselves.
And
But Ephesians 4:31 and 32, I'll read quickly. It says, let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. And be ye kind one to another, tender hearted, forgiving one another, even as God for Christ's sake has forgiven you.
and
And that in itself, if you really think about it, especially the second verse, is
Mm-hmm.
an intimate statement.
right. And so we could dive into the physical aspect of that. And again, like you said, you're not getting to this point until the emotional bond isn't built. It's both non-sexual and sexual. Okay. And this expresses affection. You know how you say we have our love languages. Some of your love languages are some are non-sexual, some are sexual, right? And it also goes into the emotional as well, because I think one of the love languages, I don't want to say it wrong, communication. Some of them are simple as just what do you call it, words of affirmation, reassurance, and all of that. So if we're talking about physical intimacy, those are two, non-sexual and sexual. And this is important. Why in a marriage again? Because it enhances your bond. Okay. It's saying now, okay, I feel vulnerable with you. I feel, I have emotional connection with you. I feel the trust is there. Like I'm able to open up. Shavawan says, is it when was it that Abraham was frolicking with was it frolicking with his wife in the garden? Or
Yeah, it was Isaac and Rebecca.
it was Isaac and Rebecca?
Genesis 26:8.
Okay, I don't know why I thought it was okay. You want to bring that
Hey,
up?
they always frolicking with their wives, I'm sure. But yeah, that one specific.
And it came to pass, when he had been there a long time, and Abimelech,
Mm-hmm.
king of the Philistines, looked out at a window and saw, and behold, Isaac was sporting with Rebekah, his wife.
And so we already know the story. Y'all go back and read the story, please. Okay. But the king was looking out and he saw them just, how, oh my goodness. Listen, when I tell you that when you have that bond with your significant other, others can see it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it don't look superficial, it don't look forced to face, because people can see that. They can, see the love is just spewing off of them. Just it's just a playful, like giddy type. You say you feel like a high
Mm-hmm.
school girl and a blah, all this stuff. He was out there sporting with his wife, y'all. And I am wanting to look up because we mentioned frolicking. But
Oh, I
what
looked
is
it up. It means it's good. It's it means cheerful, merry, or playful.
kind? And that's
So,
exactly what we meant. Nothing PG. We okay. I mean, nothing R-rated. It's all PG.
right, right.
So, and if we look up sport in here in Genesis 26 and 8, that's 8:67:11 in the Strong's Concordance. And in this sense, so it's saying to laugh or play with.
Mm,
Okay. Please. And there's a game you can play with your spouse. There is a online thing you can do to figure it out if you do not know what your love language is. But please find that out because again, this is going to help you to understand your partner and what and how to please them in that way. Show them that show them their love language. So for example, you might like words of affirmation, you might like gifts. Okay, you
mhm,
want
right.
spontaneous flowers and a little dress, here and there, and whatever, a little gift here and there. Um, and so that's what your spouse should know about you so he can give you that non-physical intimacy. It makes you happy, right? It cheers you up. And when you're happy, he's happy, right? That's all I'm going to say, period. And then on the flip side, his love language might be something that's completely different. It might be physical touch. Okay. He wants to be touched all the time. It don't matter where it is, out in public. And we're not talking about obvious, going all the way there, but just rubbing on the shoulders, rubbing on the back. You could sense when he feeling a little tense. So you do what, whatever it is. That might be
Mhm,
his love language.
I like how you just mentioned that you have to know your spouse or significant other's love language and also know your own. My husband and I went to a marriage retreat some years ago, and we played this game, and we had to act something out. And it was all about love languages. So, my husband's love language is physical touch and quality time. My love language is acts of service.
Yes.
So how we played this out was, um, for instance, it was a real scenario that happened with us. Like, let's say, on a Sunday, I'll cook dinner and I'll make this meal, put my heart into it, and then after we eat, I want to clean the kitchen. Well, my husband, he wants me to sit on the sofa with him and
Yes.
um, physical touch and, just be close, right? Spend that quality time. And I could not, we had a hard time with that situation only because I wanted to get to the dishes and I wanted to clean up. I didn't want to stop and give, that quality time and, be all lovey dovey. So, what we acted out at the conference or this little retreat was that we had, little words back and forth. But at some point, we compromised. So after we had dinner, my husband was like, well, you know what, babe, I'll help you with the kitchen. And then once he helped me with the
mhm,
kitchen, I was then able to sit on the couch with him, give him that quality time, and enjoy the physical touch. Because my mind was then clear, we compromised. But it is important to know the other person's love language so you can, pour into that. Because just because my love language is acts of service, I'm showing him this is my love language, but he's not really necessarily into the acts of service. I'm like, I do this, I do that. It's good, it's okay, but he wants my time,
Yeah.
and he wants that physical touch. So it is important to know our spouses, our significant others' love language so we can pour into them and show them love that way.
Han, I just wanted to throw something in there from the Apocrypha, the Wisdom of Solomon, um, chapter 3. I'm gonna start at verse 11. For whoso despises wisdom and nurture, he is miserable, and their hope is vain, their labors unfruitful, and their works unprofitable. Verse 12. Their wives are foolish, and their children wicked. 13. Their offspring is cursed, wherefore blessed is the barren that is undefiled, which has not known the sinful bed. She shall have fruit in the visitation of souls. 14. And blessed is the eunuch which with his hands has wrought no iniquity, nor imagined wicked things against God. For unto him shall be given the special gift of faith and an inheritance in the temple of the Lord, more acceptable to his mind. 15. For glorious is the fruit of good labors, and the root of wisdom shall never fall away. So that was Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 3, verses 11 through 15. And verse 11 already said, who despises wisdom and nurture? And then in that perspective, nurture is actually more like instruction or education or teaching something. So like whoever despises that is miserable. So it's already going through like what we're saying. If we are putting up blocks, or if we're not trying to do the work to learn our partners and appreciate them. It's one thing to not appreciate somebody when you don't know them, but when you don't appreciate them and you know them, or you've been given enough time to try and accept what you know about them, when you don't do the work to be peaceful or make it peaceful in the home, and I don't mean to say make it peaceful as in being the peacemaker, but just you have to still be at peace with who you're with. If you know you're not in a volatile, abusive, or a relationship that you're actually not meant to be in. So this is just like you just have a bunch of disagreements, you're not gelling, you're literally opposites, and you just don't agree on a lot of things, but you need to make it work. So my whole point with that is that a lot of these good keys that are coming out of, like, examples of how the husband and wife came together and they worked out an example, and it came to a resolution, a compromise, or a balance, if you will, like a bar, I forgot what, a negotiation, if you will, and both parties were satisfied with how that works. That can build to where as much as they spend more time with each other, and then they have figured it out and they remember that they figured it out, then you can get creative, then you can have a little bit more fun. You might even be able to like laugh at it and later on down the line, because sometimes our vulnerabilities or our initial things that make us uncomfortable about ourselves could also be the reason why we're like always walking around upset or bitter or whatever, because sometimes it's a mirror, like this person's more outgoing to me,
Right.
why, you know what I mean, you're still dealing with all this negative stuff. So I really like the examples that we've been given so far of what not to do, and then also say no matter the age, you can still have fun with each other and not be like a stereotypical old couple, so to speak, or a couple that's been together for so long. It's no longer like fun to do something like hold hand, put a little bit of ice cream on a spoon, pretend that you got it off on their cheek and you missed their whole mouth, stuff like that, just being funny in that way.
Yeah. And a lot of people like to say you gotta keep it interesting, gotta keep it. You always this was said by an actual counselor. He says you are always knowing, you should be always getting to know your spouse. There is no way that you marry this husband or you marry your wife and you're 5, 6, 7 years into it and you know your spouse. You should know them to that point, to a level, but you should be continuing to get, and that once you stop getting to know your spouse, that's going to become a problem. Okay. Because you're continually growing all the time. You're not okay. And so and you're continuing to be open, more vulnerable, right? So that is key. Always continue to explore your spouse, no matter if you married for even 20 years. Okay. Act like it's new, act like it, well, you can't act like it's new, but bring something new. There was something new about your spouse today. There's
I'm
something new
sorry, it's
about,
funny.
yeah,
Who are you?
there's something new, there's something fresh going on, or bring something fresh into it, try a new experience. You have not done everything together, and you have not known each other for your whole entire lives. Okay, there's new barriers to break, new mountains to climb with each other. Foreplay,
Oh, okay.
that's not too deep, but foreplay starts in the morning. Yeah, we're gonna get there, yeah, because we're talking about physical intimacy. It starts when you get up in the morning. Okay, so what you say throughout the day, the text messages that you send to each other. Hey, how you doing? Just checking on you. Can't wait till I see you later on. That's not non-sexual, but it is part of that intimacy. Okay. The emojis you send to each other, the calls throughout the day, the little notes you might leave in the lunchbox. Okay. These are all little things that build each other up throughout the day. And so, yeah, I'm thinking about you. Really? I didn't know that. You know what I'm saying? You hot and bothered, you're sweating, you want a phone call for 20 minutes because you want a call center, and then you get a text message from your husband like, I'm thinking about you. I know you stressed out today, but I got you when you get home, and vice versa, you know.
Genesis chapter 2, starting at verse 22. And the rib which the Most High God had taken from man, made he a woman, and brought her unto the man. And Adam said, This is now bone of my bones, and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. And therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. 25. And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and they were not ashamed.
With that, y'all, that was our conversation tonight on emotional and physical intimacy. And hopefully we'll see you again, same time, same place, same beauty, because Chase Mate is our
Duty.
praises to the Most High. Shalom, sisters.